does timing matter? So short answer is yes, and there's a couple of reasons for that. There is an impact of your Microsoft licensing and migration entitlements. And secondly, there's an impact of the skills that are available in the marketplace to help you do your upgrade. But I'm really going to focus today on the licensing. Now, if there was a simple way to look at Microsoft licensing and migrations, I'd love to know about it. For me, it's the quantum mechanics of Microsoft. It's quite difficult to grasp, and it's pretty difficult to explain in a way that it makes it simple. What I would do is refer everyone to the licensing guide that Microsoft offers. Note that there are two licensing guides, one that specifically addresses those who are transitioning from earlier versions. So if you do go out onto the web and download the licensing guide and you're upgrading, be sure to get the transition version of the document. Now, before I go any further, I want to also issue a disclaimer. Microsoft's policies can change, and what I'm telling you today is current as of today. The other thing is that I'm looking at AX and ERP specifically. If you've got a CRM component to your upgrade, whether it be CRM on Prem and you're looking to go to CRM customer engagement, the 365 version, that is going to be outside the scope of my discussion. Okay, so there's a couple of things I want to do before I dive into licensing. And firstly, I want to share a sample plan that our clients have used for planning their upgrade. So you can work your way through here. What I'm suggesting is right now you should be preparing a budget or a business case. The project start with an 18-month buffer, and migration of your licenses on or before October 12, 2019. And that's a really key date for licensing because there is currently a special migration offer available of 40% discount if you migrate by that date. Again, things may change, but that's where it stands right now. So if you're on 2012 RTM, R2, or if you're on 2009, mainstream support ends 2018. It's too late. If you're on 2012 R3, this is a reasonable level of planning that you need to consider if you want to get onto R3 before mainstream support ends with a little bit of buffer time. And then I'm going to also help with a glossary before we go straight into licensing. And this should help you to answer the questions that I'm going to ask, which in turn will help you to decide how your upgrade licensing will be formulated. So an EA is a volume agreement. It's a 3-year agreement from Microsoft, typically for customers who have over 500 desktops. AX could be purchased on the EA from release 2012. An EA provides you really with the ability to transact directly with Microsoft, and that's usually handled through something called an LSP, a licensing solution partner. They used to be called LARs, large account resellers, and that's someone like Dell or CDW. And your invoice for your software will have come from Microsoft. The SCE is an addendum to the EA that provides for cloud-based applications, and it still includes a commitment for a minimum amount of Azure consumption. Those also go through this large account reseller model. An EA customer pays software assurance, and that's the annual fee related to the ongoing maintenance of the products that are on your EA. It's generally about 25% of the value of the licenses you've got installed. But the most impactful thing about being on an EA for 2012 client upgrading is that, one, do you want Dynamics 365 also to be on the EA? And two, is the 3-year term, the fact that you've got price stability for 3 years. Okay, so the DPL, this was the way that clients who did not have an EA used to buy their Dynamics licenses. DPL clients would be paying an annual fee. You're probably paying 16% per annum. In the biz, we call it BREP, Business Ready Enhancement Plan. You'll see it written in Microsoft nomenclature as EP or Enhancement Plan. And that contrasts with the EA, Sorry, and when contrasting with the EA, this is a 1-year term agreement. So you're paying your BREP on an annual basis based on your value on your DPL, your Dynamics price list. So CSP is the new licensing model from Microsoft for cloud services. You can buy Dynamics or Office or any of the much of the Microsoft stack through a CSP agreement. There are 2 types of CSP provider. There's a tier 1 and tier 2, but regardless of the type of CSP provider, neither of them that should not make a difference to you in terms of their ability to sell you an upgrade. So based on those terminology, EA, DPL, SCE, ways to transact and buy your software. SA, BREP is your annuity, and CSP is the new one available. Obviously, the EA is still available for organizations who have one or who want one. So now we have the definitions of these terms. Here are the main questions we would ask a client when we're working through their migration licensing. And I'm assuming you're current on your software assurance or maintenance. None of this will apply if you're not. So the first thing to ask is, what version are you on? That does make a difference. How did you originally buy your licenses? Was it through EA or DPL? How can you buy your new licenses when you're moving forward? Do you have a choice? And where are you at in your license cycle? That is, when does your EA or your BREP, your EA renew or your BREP come up for renewal? So I'm going to walk through each one of these and let you know what the impact is depending on your answer. So AX2009. If you're on 2009, it was never available on the EA, so you'd have acquired your licenses on the DPL. Now, you may wish to buy your D365 licenses on your EA if you have one, and this goes for 2012 clients as well, or you may wish to buy them on the CSP. Now, there is some relative strengths and weaknesses of both, and it's well beyond the scope of this call, but please do know you shouldn't assume that just because you have an EA that that's the way to buy your licenses. Equally, don't necessarily assume that the CSP is the best. There is a best model depending on what you're looking for, and there are good reasons to choose one method over the other, and your partner should be able to walk you through those. Also, 2009 organizations are on a version that has concurrent licensing. So for 2012 and 365, they're named licenses. If you're on 2009, you've got a little bit of heavy lifting to do to determine what quantity of named users you need for each of those 3 categories that are available, the license types, which are full users, activity users, and team users. Now, migrating your licenses from concurrent to name is not an easy task. It's quite hard to get it exactly right. And most partners, including Sikich, have a license translation spreadsheet that will help you determine which of those categories each of your users fall into. So if you're on 2009, we recommend you identifying every individual user of the system, allocating them to the most likely role designation, and then the license type is then tied to the role. And you use this method to work out what you need. So there's good news for 2009 users that there's no migration formula or rules for moving your licenses over to D365. You can access the discount and just subscribe for the number of licenses you need. So these days, when the users are charged per user per month, there's not really any benefit to migrating more users than you need anyway. And your partner should be able to walk you through that step. For 2012 customers, it's a pretty close correlation between the 3 tiers of user type. So enterprise for 2012, full for 365. There's functional for 2012 and activity for 365. And the task users of 2012 more or less correlates to the team users. Do know that the team users in D365 are pretty special, and they do provide access to the entire system for read only, which has been really, really great for some of our clients who want their executives to look but don't touch. They also work across D365 Finance and Operations, the ERP, and the Customer Engagement, which is the CRM license. Okay, so timing and what you originally bought, and how do you buy moving forward? So why does this matter? If your licenses are DPL, you'll be on a 1-year renewal cycle. If your licenses are through an EA, you'll be going on a 3-year renewal cycle. So the general rule of thumb is that if you migrate your licenses midterm, it will necessitate you keeping your annuity going, and you'll pay more. Now, not much more, but more. And the last point I'd like to make is that any maintenance, BREP or software assurance you have paid for up until the date you migrate is a sunk cost. There's no accounting, there's no discounting to reflect that. So timing. If you've got time to run on your agreement, whether it be a DPL or an EA, we place your order using a SKU that takes that into account. It's called an add-on SKU. So what it basically is the top up of your annuity. So you keep your annuity going and you buy this add-on SKU until you either don't want to do it anymore and you want to migrate to the from SA SKU, or until your agreement comes close to expiring and you're renewing, and then you migrate to the SA SKU. So I don't know how easy that is to follow. 2 types of ways we can order your software. One keeps you paying your annuity, and it is somewhat less because it takes into account that annuity, but it is still more in total than if you decide to stop your annuity and start afresh on this from SA SKU. Now, as I said, the models we have tell us it's always going to be cheaper to drop your maintenance and buy the from SA SKU. And what we are doing is advising our clients to consider making a move immediately before their renewal. And that by far is the tidiest way to do it. And it's simply because a couple of things. It is the cheaper way. And also it means that you only need to do 1 license migration, not 2. Okay. What complicates this, however, is the 40% discount. So the 40% discount's on offer for any contracts in place at October the 12th, 2019. So if you were to upgrade your licenses at, say, 1st of September 2018, from whatever you're on, EA or DPL, you'll get the 40% discount for the 12 months if you're on DPL. Sorry, CSP. You will get the 40% discount on CSP because it's a 12-month contract. When you renew for a further 12 months, because you're renewing before that October 12, 2019 deadline, you're going to get the 40% for another 12 months. If, however, let's say you upgrade your licenses October 15, 2018, you'll get the 40% for the 12 months, but when you go to renew, the 40% will no longer be available. Now, if you're on an EA and your EA expires October 15, you'll get the 40% from now through to the end of your EA. When you go to renew, subject, of course, to whatever negotiation pressure you can bring to bear, you're not going to get the 40% discount. So timing does make a big difference on how long you're going to be able to access that 40% discount for. And that's why it's important to know, 1, when your renewal period is, and 2, what sort of agreement you've got with Microsoft. As I said, it's not the easiest thing to explain. Okay. If you have 300 users today and you only access 40% of the discount, you only get 40% of the discount on those 300 cloud users. So user number 301 pays full price. The other thing to consider is dual rights. So if you have 300 named users today and you want to move 30 now and start your upgrade, you'll buy the add-on and keep maintenance in place for the remaining 270 users. Then you can choose to move them later on because you've still got their maintenance running and should be able to access the discount if it's before the due date, before the October 12th date. What I do recommend is that you download the transition guide that's online and read it through. For those organizations who are only doing ERP, it can be quite confusing. There's a whole lot of CRM information in there as well. And that's why it's just a little bit easier just to look at the ERP side independently. And a couple of caveats also. I know that Dynamics 365 on-prem, there are some different rules around the on-prem license. I am only talking about going to the cloud. And I do know that retail have some different licensing. So if that's not enough of licensing for you, it probably is for me. Yeah, so timing does matter. There are lots of opportunities to save if you get your timing right, or spend more if you don't actually take note of those timings. So I hope that was helpful. Just before we finish off on timing, this may or may not be relevant, or you may or may not think it's relevant to you, but I think it's worthwhile noting that where are we at in terms of upgrade across the partner channel? So in late 2016, there were a few teams around that had participated in an upgrade. I think only maybe 10 projects went live just soon after the release of the product. And Sikich had 2 of those clients on the early adopter program. By midway through 2017, more and more partners had experience with this upgrade process. And by the end of 2017, most good consultants were scheduled on a D365 project, either an upgrade or a new install. And if they weren't working on a D365 project, they were out there looking for one. So just know this, that the best consultants generally want to work with the latest tools. You've probably experienced that yourselves. This year, a larger proportion of the partner resources are tied up with 365 projects, and more clients are, as they are on board to the new version, either from upgrades or new, the total capacity of the channel does start to dwindle. So it does have an impact, and that is your partners have to find full teams to be able to deploy, and you're going to be better off if they deploy teams who have had experience with upgrades.